All right, welcome to another episode from the Chart Reader. So today we will be looking at energy and oil, and we're going to do the same thing we always do, right? We're going to look at the daily and the weekly to see what's setting up. We have our 5 moving averages, these horizontal support and resistance lines that I do manually draw, and then when we're done up here, we will use the MACD, RSI, and volume as our lower indicators. Again, 80% of the work is up here, okay? It's all about breaking the lines, holding the lines, using the support and resistances. And then when we're done up here, this is that last 20%, just a confirmation as needed, right? Because let's say a couple look really good, we'll use these to kind of weed it out and pick that one that's the best, right? So that's how it works. Look, we normally start here. Last week I started with CEI just because of the reverse split news, but we will start with SCO. Again, this is a short on crude oil. So if oil is bad, this will be good. If oil is good, this will be bad, right? And it's good to look at this because it'll give you clues for how, other things we'll look at, right? And that's also why we do the sector review. You look at a bunch, use the information, hone in on the one that you're going to throw your money in, right? So let's get going. So what happened, right? I talked about this, and I'm going to zoom out. I've been doing it for the last couple of videos, right? Look how long it's been since we've broken over that 200 line, right? You can't expect it to be easy to get over, right? Because again, it's been, 2 years, right? 2020 was the last time. So you've got to believe it's going to be difficult to get over it. But look, there was an almost, I got to zoom out more, sorry. There was an almost test right here, not quite at the line, but it got close. There was definitely a break but fail. A good one that I actually did a swing trade on and talked about after I sold, right? Because right here it failed. There was a question about potentially getting in, and I talked about just wait to see what happens with this line, right? Because we want to get over the 8 and we also want confirmation, right? So it broke. It bounced, just not a good enough bounce, right? And what really started to scare me was it looked like we were about to lose the 200, right? Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, all 5 of our moving averages are literally dollars and pennies away from each other, right? Kind of exaggerating, but you get the point, right? It's such a tight cluster. And we've seen it a couple times, right? It wants to break up, but can't. It wants to break down, but can't. It wants to break up, but can't. It's really hard, and anything can happen in a tight horizontal cluster. I've called it a tornado a couple times, right? Literally, this thing's going to just kind of keep spinning you. Ultimately, you're just going to stay horizontal until you definitively break up or down, right? So look, this line is a little less important for me now. I actually would enter at 2670 because at 2670, we're going to get over everything, right? A good 2-day upward motion, right? There's still about 15 minutes left in trading, so I'm assuming nothing silly happens, but it looks like we're starting an upward formation. Obviously, you can see the wick right here, right? Intraday, it wanted to break some lines, but yeah, it's not quite over the 200, let alone any of the other ones, right? So still a lot needs to happen, and honestly, I kind of wouldn't care if a lot of these break. I would wait for here, and I'm going to actually do this real quick. We're going to set an alert at that line. When it crosses this line, I'd like to know. Again, an alert is not an immediate buy notification. An alert simply means, hey, go look at the charts if you can, because there might be something worth looking at, if not for today, for tomorrow, whatever, right? Looking at the weekly, it's kind of the opposite of the 200 line. It's the 50 line, right? Again, it tries to make a good break at the 50, clearly gets rejected, but again, trying to just stay with it, right? And look, unlike the 200 on the other one, there still hasn't been any real break on this 50, right? Because again, going back to the daily, okay, I'm going to zoom out. There was almost getting close. There was a couple break and fails, and there was a first good one, right? On the weekly, sorry to zoom out so much, we just had our, first real couple weeks of testing it and failing it, right? So, hey, maybe a couple weeks from now, we'll actually make another attempt and maybe even a break and fail of the 200, of the 50, right? But I could see it breaking the 50, coming up to 31, and then coming down and either bouncing off the 50 and going again, or again, just losing the 50 and coming down, right? Bunch of ways it could play it, but just a lot to be looking at here. And remember, if this seems positive, it's going to make other things look scary, right? Immediately, I would say this isn't a good chart, right? we're definitely several days under the 8. We're obviously under all the moving averages, but again, just this horizontal cluster makes things a little tighter to really give a good diagnostic, right, or a good analysis, whatever that word is, right? But overall, I would say I'm medium on this, which would have me kind of medium to worried going into these oil stocks, right? So look, you can see it. OXY did really bad, even though SCO was still kind of shaky, right? Because overall, again, we're still higher, right? This thing was at 23 and change. We're definitely at 24 and change, right? There's still a profit on SCO. So you gotta expect that this thing is going to go down, right? And unfortunately, this went down a lot more than SCO's movement, right? So just kind of keep that in the back of your pocket, right? It only takes a little bit up and a little bit down to really make a good influence on these individual stocks, right? So again, just keep that in your back pocket. What are we seeing right now with OXY? A little bit scary, right? Because look, we were going horizontal. We definitely lose it. We're coming to the 200. I'm really looking at the 200 a lot more than the 8. And we're definitely under it, trying to get over it, under it, trying to get over it. And a pretty bad rejection today that actually puts us again under all 5, right? This 61 line has been doing a good job. But look, already 1 bounce, 2 bounce. Is it going to bounce us again on the 3rd one? Is it going to get lost, right? I mean, it's a little worrisome, right? We've seen lines bounce it a bunch of times, right? I remember the Hexo 17-cent line, seriously, maybe 8-10 bounces before it really broke, right? But yeah, I'm not a big fan of using a support too much, right? Because eventually it's going to give up. We're coming to the 50 on the weekly, right? Literally the exact opposite of SCO, right? SCO is trying to break the 50. This thing is hoping it bounces off the 50, right? Because again, it's been a really long time, not as long. You can see that there were a couple test moments actually right here, right? But yeah, I mean, again, it's not as dramatic, but you don't want to lose the 50, right? Because if you lose this, you're probably going to go to the next line, right? You're going to probably come down here to the low 40s, right? The mid to low 40s. That's not what you want. Because again, if you lose that, then you're probably going to come here, right? So I'll make a couple new lines just because I see them. I'm going to put one at that peak, and then I'm going to put one at roughly 50%. I think that's about halfway. Maybe that's a little too high. That's probably a little closer to 50%, give or take. Yeah. So again, really, I think if this mid 50s is broken, it'll be a very quick drop down. Because again, green generally will turn into red eventually, right? So just be careful right there. I'm gonna actually zoom out just to see it. Yeah, this just big gap up can very quickly fall. So be careful. Still a couple support lines before we get there. But yeah, OXY looking a little scary, I'll be honest with you, right? CEI. So I definitely got the reverse split day wrong. A lot of people enjoyed making fun of me on that online. Hey, it's okay. I'm not here to be perfect, right? But if there's one thing I said a bunch of times is don't go lower than the 12-12 candle. Okay, and you can literally see what happened for the number of days after that happened, right? You could have easily, again, this is not financial advice, right? So you're not using my stuff as financial advice, but you could have set a stop loss at 425. You could have set a stop loss exactly at the 8, which was 418. You see it in the box over there. There were places to set stop losses and not lose 50% of your money over the last 5 days, right? And look, there's still 7 minutes left, and I'm seeing this thing still go down, right? We're already almost 9% today, right? And look, we talk about it. Volume is king, right? Monstrous gap up on that one day, right? But again, when you go from 15 million all the way down to 4 million, when you lose 66% of your volume in a day, you can't expect good things to happen. From there, I always say, if you can break the 50 moving average in volume, you're gonna move substantial stuff. Unfortunately, all those breaks have been sells, right? So you can just literally see a 50% dump since I gave this, make sure it doesn't go lower than 12-12 candle, right? So, and look, where are we now? I mean, this was at all-time lows before it did the reverse split. This is still at all-time lows after it did the reverse split, right? I mean, it's a reverse split just doesn't change anything. All it does is move it from dollars to cents, right? And I'm serious. I'm not here to spread fear. I'm sure there's going to be a couple really good swings, don't get me wrong, but this thing's probably going to go back to under $1. This thing's probably going to go back to its pre-split numbers, which is generally what happens. And it's a real sad thing, you know, but I'm still seeing a struggle to get over the green line. It's now getting substantially further from the green line, right? When I say there might be a good swing, yeah, hey, we might go from here to the green line. But if you know how I look at this, we're looking for good sustained trades, right? We're not looking for these maybe pops, then a bunch of drops, right? That's how you like lose your sanity very quickly. I promise you that. But what am I seeing? I'm seeing a horrible weekly chart, a horrible daily chart, and nothing but all-time lows, right? So yeah, I definitely messed up the day on the reverse split. I don't look at news, you know that, right? But when I say don't go lower than the 12-12 candle, you see what happens, what that means, right? And I promise you, it doesn't matter if it's pre-split or post-split, that 12-12 candle was still the one, right? So yeah, there's not many lines I can actually make, right? Because again, we're at all-time lows. I guess I'll throw one right there, and I'll throw one right there just to have them. But yeah, I mean, not too much to expect on CEI, right? So Indo. Again, look what's happening on the daily, right? You're in a horizontal, you lose it, and all you're going to do is trade down with the 8, right? Super, super scary. And again, like I said, we still haven't even made an attempt at trying to get to the 20, right? So there's still a lot of reason to believe bad's going to happen. We've broken a number of lines since last week's video as well, right? So I got to zoom out. We're not at all-time lows, but just look, green could be a really devastating red. All right. There's a lot of reason to believe 345 is right around the corner right now, right? And just look how ugly this weekly is. It looks like the weekly is about to do what the daily did, right? It kind of is starting to look like that. And if it takes this many days, you don't want to know how many weeks it's going to take, because this thing's already done it. It did it pretty badly right here. You know what I mean? Like, this thing has seen several weeks above the 8, a beautiful thing, and you make some silly money, literally from 2 to 9, right? I'm not a fool. I know INDO and IMPP, which is next that we're going to look at, these can make some silly money when the time is right. Otherwise, all you're going to do is trade under the 8 for weeks and weeks, and it becomes months and months. And then you'll get a little pop that makes you happy. But yeah, looking back, you went from 7 to 4 way quicker than you really wanted, right? So hopefully you've used these videos. Obviously, this is not financial advice, but should be no surprise. If you can't get over the 8, there's no reason for me to talk about any of these down here. This is 80% of the work, right? So why am I going to waste my breaths and your valuable time talking about the MACD and the RSI when all we're doing is failing the 8, right? So yeah, IMPP. Again, I like the fact that INDO and IMPP generally look the same and trade together. It makes it easy to use cues from one to the other, right? Just in case there's any sort of anomalies. Because look, again, IMPP, nothing but red and maybe 2 green days since the 8th, okay? I'm going to go back to Indo. Indo had a little bit of this, like, and again, since the 8th, right? So since this day, Indo had a little bit of some, like, it looked like it wanted to break it, but it never did, obviously. And really, if you looked at IMPP, there were a lot of reasons to tell you I don't think it's going to either. You know what I mean? So this wick day might have been the one that maybe caught a couple people off guard. But again, we don't care about interday pops. That's not what we're here for, right? So there's still 2 minutes left in trading, and then I'm going to make sure that we're not looking at any after hours stuff. But yeah, again, look, once you lose horizontal, it gets really ugly, right? And again, we still can't get over the 8, and now it's starting to look, oh, nice little jump up. There you go. Right back down. Little last second movements. But yeah, it just seems like it's getting further and further from the 8, right? That's not what you want to see. Again, IMPP is relatively new. You can see the 50th week was literally right here, right? We still don't have 100. We still don't have 200. And look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks in, you get your first green 8 moving average dot, right? If I counted to this, it would be 20. Count to this, it's 50. Still hasn't been 100 or 200 yet, right? So we're actually below all our moving averages, even though there's only 3, not 5, because again, the 5th, the 4th don't exist yet, right? So what am I seeing? I'm just just seeing what looks like losing a horizontal on the weekly. And again, look, we've seen so many weeks turn into so many months of trading under the 8 with like a little bit of hope and then again back down, right? So don't get caught. When it's ready, we'll know. We'll make that money. Trust me. Right now, just don't sit there and pretend. That's not what we're here for, right? There's about 1 minute in trading, and then I'm just gonna make sure that okay, I think trading is actually over. Give me 1 second. Show data for regular hours. So it's important for me to only use regular hour candles. Again, more people trade in the regular hours than post and after. There's a lot of people that actually don't know how to trade in pre and post, right? So I think I said post and after a second ago. Sorry about that. But again, it's all about the intraday. It's all about the real. HUSA, again, I talked about it, right? Anything can happen in a horizontal cluster. It had its moments of wanting to go up. It definitely had a real scary loss. It really wanted to go back up, and then clearly it failed, right? So I'm going to go real quick back to, SCO. Again, right? Anything can happen. You can see this one's a lot tighter, but again, it looks like it wants to go, looks like it wants to come up. There's a real good chance that this is going to fail right here and go down. Again, MACD looks not that good. RSI looks not that good. Volume's actually not even that great. More selling than buying, right? So anything can happen here. For all we know, this is what we'll see, right? This attempt of getting in, staying in, getting in, staying in, an eventual fall, right? So the flip side is obviously breaking it up and then keeping sustained if you can, right? But this is the bad side of losing it. And look, it looks like things are going to get worse. Are we near all-time lows? We're not, but that's a real scary gap down. Oh, that's a real scary gap down. And then here we start going into like very, very weak trading. So it really, really seems like, and again, we have a couple moving averages to hold it, but the fact that it's that big a gap is really scary, actually. Let me make that one just a little, oops, still wasn't good. Did it move? There we go. Too high now. Whatever. Okay, I'm done. But yeah, look, okay, I'm going to actually delete this because that pretty much lines up right on the 200. So, hey, maybe the 100 will save it. Maybe the 200 will save it. And again, these are on the weekly, right? Otherwise, there's a lot of reason to believe this is coming from 325 all the way down to 2. So be careful here. You might literally looking at another 33% loss here. But a lot of it will start with SCO. If SCO is, and I'm going to go back to it one more time. If SCO is unable to break up on this, and look, you can see it broke up once, and you can see it try to do it again here, right? So, I mean, it hasn't been too long. But if it doesn't, the other oil things might turn around, right? So we're done with the oil-specific ones. We're going to come into UEC. Okay, UEC, I mentioned it, right? It looked like there was an upward curve going, and it actually did what we thought. It came to this cluster of 3. Unfortunately, like I say, right, it's hard to break multiple lines when they're this tight, right? Just is what it is. But hey, there was actually a pretty good swing from even from here to here. It wasn't that bad, but right now what really matters is this 8 moving average, okay? I'll talk about the 20 shortly, but what I would love to see is you go up to the 50, fail it, use the 8 as a bounce to try to go make a second attempt up, okay? RSI never even got that high. It was only in the 60s, so it definitely could have done something if volume helped, right? These 3 days were a higher number of buying than these 2, right? So that kind of sucks a little bit. Over or exactly at the 50 line, over the 50 line, over the 50 line, and then selling well under selling, right? So this 3 days was stomped out a lot by volume, which sucked. And again, you can see the 50 kind of acting as an important resistance right there, right? But hey, there's still a lot of reason to believe this could bounce off the 8 or actually the 20 itself, especially since we're at this 350 line, right? But again, the safest trading is going to be, you can even call it $4. I'm going to go ahead and set an alert for $4. If you can get over $4, you'll obviously be over all the moving averages. And then, hey, hopefully you break 423 and work your way up. I'll even draw one more line to give us a little hope of, hey, hitting 450. And look, if it goes from 4 to 450, right, that's actually a little bit more than a 10% jump right there, which is it's a beautiful thing. You hear me often get really excited about 10% movements. Oh man, look at this. So super, super tight on the weekly. Looked like it was going to fall out of the cluster, but luckily this 100 actually saved it right here, right? Again, if you can get to the $4 alert point that we just gave us, it'll get you over all these moving averages on the weekly. And actually, it'll put you over every single one since the 200 is down here. The fact that we didn't lose the 100 is good because honestly, if that happened, it could have come all the way down here, right? So a lot happening here, right? And again, I think $4 is a real comfortable alert. If you want to maybe set it at like 390-ish, give or take, maybe make it a little lower, try to squeeze a little bit more profit out of it. Hey, you do you, right? At the minimum, what's the 397 is at least the 200 moving average, right? So yeah, play your risk tolerance reward however you want. But yeah, hey, a nice at least string, right? And it kind of looked like it was going to happen actually after this 9% pop. I think that was the last day I made the video because we saw the upward curve. And yeah, there was a nice pop if I'm not mistaken. GEVO. Again, one of my favorite stocks to say out loud because you got to go GEVO. Unfortunately, this is making no money right now. Are we at all-time lows? Is this what that 194 line is? Oh, man, it looks... Oh, it's not. Okay. But you can see we're kind of working our way down already. Now, okay, yeah, that's not good. So let's come back to the daily. Let's just see what we're looking at, and then I'll go to the weekly, right? There was what looked like a nice move to break the 50, right? Unfortunately, that really was the only attempt. A little bit of a wick there, but I don't care about wicks, right? From there, all it really did was just lose the 50, lose the 20, and now it's starting to lose the 8, right? So a lot to be worried about on GEVO, and in all honesty, none of these actually look that good. Looks like MACD is about to go deeper in the zeros. I mean, there's just a lot to be concerned here. Again, not a good weekly, right? Look how many weeks this thing has been under the 8. If you can get over the 8 on the weekly, that'll give you a much better shot of getting at least 3 out of 5 good days, or hey, maybe even 1 good day, 4 bad days, but that one day still makes it a good week overall, right? So if you're going to expect the week to look ugly, you can't expect the 5 trading days to average out to be good, right? So again, that's why we look at these two. Look at the week to see how the days are. If you want, look at the month to see how the week is. To see, the further you zoom, the actual better it is, right? But one more time, just kind of going back to that weekly because it was the easiest place to see it. A lot of reason to believe we're coming to 148, if not 125, right? 150 and 125. Those are just natural whole numbers, So they seem very realistic. Look, I'm not going to draw a line, but all-time lows is 54 cents. Okay, so there's a lot more than 50% to lose. And honestly, if this range is lost, again, give or take this like 80, 85 cent, it's going to be a real quick drop down to 60. So just be careful, okay? Again, be careful. Look, GEVO is sad because I think the CEO is part of the Biden administration of science or some shit. And sorry to curse, I try not to do that. But I remember, and again, I've made some real silly money on GEVO. I will be honest. I remember riding this from dollars to 4. I know I didn't get as high as 10, but I for sure rode from dollars to 4. And it was a real beautiful thing. Yeah, just long away from that, right? And again, when the conditions are right, we'll get there. But yeah, GEVO had a lot of high hope. Like I said, there was some like Biden administration connections, and yeah, still very, very it hasn't proven anything, right? GEVO. So LIACF, coming to LIACF. So a lot was happening here, right? I got it wrong, right? And again, don't zoom too much. There was a horizontal cluster. It was a cluster of 3. It started to look like it was going to come down. And I remember, I think this was the last video where I said, hey, I think it's going to drop. It starts to make this magical run to and past the 200. One thing I talked about is I wanted to see what was going to happen on the 200. And it was a beautiful thing, right? You break the 200, not quite the confirmation we want. We go a little horizontal. Then you nicely break it, okay? When I say, right, when you're done with the horizontal, when you're done with the moving averages, the only thing you can really use are the horizontal. So this 230 was just a little too much. It came down and like magic, right, it bounced on the 200. Couldn't get high enough. And now you got to be worried. Can it bounce again on this 200? I don't know, right? The fact that the 20 is coming, I think makes it a little better. Again, it's harder to lose 2 lines than it is to lose 1 line, right? So maybe the fact that both will roughly be around that 196 level when this thing gets to 196, maybe the next day or two, hey, maybe that'll hold. Otherwise, yeah, we're coming to 175, right? And then if not that, the 170, give or take. So definitely a very, very good run. If this line is lost, Green, 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 green will turn to red, 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 red very, very quickly, right? So just be careful here. Again, we kind of talked about it, the 50, right? If it could have broken the 50, and this one didn't actually have a crazy loss to the 50, but it just couldn't get over it. And look, there was actually two lines there, right? And it just goes back to what I say. It's hard to break one line, let alone two, right? So a beautiful candle to break it. The last 2 weeks, though, just not that confirmation we wanted. I'm happy to see the weekly is, hasn't substantially lost that 50 yet. But yeah, if the 50's lost, it's probably going to come, like I said, that same range that we were talking about on the daily, right? Around that 180, and if it doesn't lose the 180, it'll come. So just, again, be careful, but there were definitely good profits to be made. Now that we're starting to go horizontal, this is a good place to at least bank maybe 25, 30, 35% of that profit, right? I'm not going to tell you what to do with your money, but just things to consider, right? Last on the list, okay, TMC. I definitely saw yesterday's big pop. We are now kind of making a good upward curve. I like seeing that. It does look like we're actually over the 8, right? Yeah, so the 8 was at 60. This closed at 61. I do like that. Are we over this candle? No, so this one closed at 62 cents, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set an alert for 62 cents, okay? Again, this one, okay, again, this is for sure not an immediate intention to buy. However, I actually might consider putting a stop buy here and seeing what happens. There's a few reasons why I probably wouldn't, and I'll just set the alert, and if I wake up and, I don't have things to do with my wife or whatnot, maybe I'll do a little swing trade, right? But MACD is definitely not looking great. It's still red over green. RSI looks okay. I'm at least happy that the green is over the red, but look, that's just a pretty horizontal line, so that means nothing to me, right? The last 2 days were good buy days. The last 5 were definitely more selling than buying, right? So, and we're not really breaking that 50 average on volume as much as I'd want. So nothing seems immediate. However, if you can break 62 cents, this red and red can easily fill, and we might jump all the way to 72, right? Which is a lot more than 10%, because 6 cents would put us at 68, right? So there's almost a 15% gap right there if it hits. So there's reasons to put a stop buy. Hey, you might even put the stop buy at 63 and then put a stop sell stop sell at 72, a limit sell. Sorry about that. And you might get yourself a 10%, 15% move without having to do any work, right? So again, horrible weekly. I get that this is one good green candle in a string of reds. I want a second confirmation, and from there, I at least want to get over that. But if we can get the next week up here, there's a lot of red to fill, right? So there, like I said, you could make a good run here. Hell, you might even make a good run, a first attempt at the 20, right? And then fail again. I have no idea, but this is definitely in all-time lows, so do keep that in mind. Or I should have done that on the weekly instead of the daily. Look, we're definitely in all-time lows, right? So not a lot of reason to believe there's good sustained trading, but like I said, there are some red candles to fill, and the fact that we're this low pennies are big percents, right? So literally 1 penny was 1%, right? If we're talking about almost 10%, 10 cents, right? It's a beautiful thing. So nice. This was the last on the list. Look, I hope you're learning whether you subscribe or not. I sincerely appreciate your time. Have a great one.